because these are some of the fascinating things about the area that make it so unique. Obviously, it's a completely unique location where it's located in Namibia. The surrounding countries. Now, does anybody know what a tri-point is?
3 boundaries touching on one.
Yeah, so 3 boundaries touching each other. Sorry, do you? No. So a tri-point boundary is where 3 countries share a common border, where they're connected together. I'm trying to think. So we've got in Limpopo, actually, there's a tri-point where there's a border with Mozambique one side, South Africa, and Zimbabwe. It's a tri-point. There's 150 tri-points in the whole world. So there's quite a lot of them. So from that, does anybody know what a quad point is? Where 4 countries all join together in one place. Do you know how many of them there is in the whole world? 1. There is only 1 in the entire world, and that's here, at Impalala Island, where we're going to be heading to next. So it's the only place in the world where 4 countries all join together. And it's a bit of a geographical anomaly. It's caused by the rivers. Now, we're now going to have a geology lesson on rivers. So there's, as I mentioned, the 3.5 rivers that run into this area. You've got the Okavango. Now, the Okavango River starts in Central Africa Republic, in the middle of Africa, flows through the Congo, goes into the Angolan highlands, which are up here, then flows off the highlands and comes down here. The road is built beside the river, joins Namibia here, so just past Rundu, this is the Okavango River, flows through here, goes over Popper Falls, that's the Okavango River, and then floods into this area, which is the Okavango Delta. It's the only river in the world that doesn't flood into the sea, because most rivers come from mountains and flood to the coast and go out to coast. The Okavango Delta is the Okavango River flooding inland. So it's the only place in the world where this happens. So in this area, which is like, and this whole area, there's very rarely any rain, but for most of the year it's completely flooded because of water in Central Africa. It's quite incredible. But it gets better than that, because as the water levels, as there's more rain comes down and floods through, the water levels go up and down in the delta. The depth of the delta varies 6 meters on an annual basis for how much water floods in and out in the deepest part of the channel here. But as it gets over a certain depth, it gets this, you can see a fault line here. The water then spills over, but doesn't flood this area. This is Mound down here. Mound never gets flooded, but it's right on the edge of the delta, because underneath the ground, it's all sand at that point. The water floods over, goes underground, floods across Botswana. And down south here, I don't quite have in the map, it's just on the edge there, you've got Ngai Pan, which is a big salt pan that floods once every 20 or 30 years when the delta overfills. So the water floods under Botswana and then fills up the pan. Then, when the pan gets to a certain level, it does the same thing. It spills over, disappears into the ground, and guess where it goes next? Sandwich Harbour, Namibia. So it then flows from Angola, from Central Africa, Angola, through the mountains, into the delta, underneath Botswana, onto the pan, out of the pan, under Botswana, under Namibia, and out to the sea at Sandwich Harbour. So it's quite incredible that water coming out of Sandwich Harbour started in Central Africa. It's quite an amazing, so it's a very unique river, and yes, it's the only river that technically doesn't flood into the sea. So that's the Okavango, and that's why it's called the Okavango Delta. So that's that main river there, that runs there. Then you've got the Zambezi River, which of course is famous for going over Vic Falls, over here. The Zambezi River also starts in Congo, floods through the highlands of Angola, and then it comes down here, crosses over at Congola, comes through. So all the water we were seeing on these parks was from the Kwando River, which we'll come to, and the Zambezi River, that then floods along here, goes to the border here, and then goes over Victoria Falls, which is on the border with Zambia and Zimbabwe, and then goes over into Zimbabwe, Kariba. And does anybody know where the Zambezi floods into the sea? Mozambique. So the Zambezi floodplains of central Mozambique come from here, from Central Africa. So you have Central Africa through Angola, along this border, over Vic Falls, right across Zimbabwe, into Mozambique, over the Cahora Dam, which is the hydroelectric dam near Tet, and then into the sea on that coast. So all the rivers that flood down here, one doesn't go anywhere at all, and one goes all the way out to the east side of Africa, even though we've got the coast just over here. It's really quite interesting. The Kwando River is the third river I mentioned, also comes down, is the only one that starts in Angola and ends in here, and that actually gets dissipated, and some of it goes to the Okavango Delta, some of it goes to the Zambezi. And
What's the river?
Kwando. And you'll see there's one or two lodges. The lodge we actually looked at used to be called Kwando Lodge, because it was on the Kwando River. So Kwando is a name you'll see popping up here, and it's named after that river. So that's the three rivers, but I also then mentioned 3.5 rivers, because I like my halves. So the most famous river in this area after the Zambezi is what everybody refers to as the Chobe River, because Chobe National Park is basically, well, you've got Okavango, this is Chobe National Park, and this is the Chobe River running along here. But the Chobe River is not actually a river. Does anybody know roughly what defines a river? Water? Not in Namibia, no. But generally water. But it has to have a source and it has to have an end. The Chobe River has neither. So the Chobe River runs between the Kwando and the Zambezi. And depending on which river has most water, the water of the Zambezi floods across the channel towards the Kwando. When there's less water, the water from the Kwando floods along the thing. So it's actually a channel. It's called the Chobe Channel, because the water in it can flow in two directions depending on the time of year, which is also because most rivers run in one way, but the Chobe Channel can run both ways. So yeah, and that's that river that runs along here, and that's exceptionally good for animal viewing, because basically all of this in Botswana, this section is all national park, with some of the highest concentrations of animals in the world in it. So Chobe River cruises are very, very popular. But that was just a very quick geology and geography lesson on that area.